Welcome, traveler. My name is Winkari, and this is The Journey, a Guild Wars 2 podcast. A cozy stop along the road where we share adventures, stories, and the latest news and updates as we reflect on the world of Tyria. Pull up a chair, warm yourself by the fire, and let's begin. Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Winkari Has a Cold. Wah, wah. Just kidding. Well, kidding, not kidding. I do have a cold, but I'm here, and in reality, this is episode 11 of The Journey. As I already said, my name is Winkari. Thanks so much for being here. It is Thursday, March 19th, 2026, and in this episode, we're going to be discussing Caledon Forest, the Grove, and Ascalonian Catacombs Explorable Mode. A few life updates for you. As you've already heard, I've got a bad cold that I'm recovering from. It's gone through my entire family except my superhuman wife, who just never gets sick. But she's also a teacher, so I think teachers just have this inherent immune system because they're just around germs all the time. I digress. Some IRL news outside of that. I finished Season 1 of Starfleet Academy. Any Star Trek fans out there? Had its highs, had its lows. We'll see. But generally speaking, I've liked it in some episodes, really didn't like it in some others. But if they do a second season, we'll see how it goes. I'm also plugging away at the Ghosts of Ascalon book. Really enjoying that one. I'm about halfway through. Really excited to see where that goes. And finally, if you missed it last episode, we have a Patreon now. I'd love it if you could check it out. The Journey, a Guild Wars 2 podcast. That is us on Patreon. And it's very simple. We have essentially two tiers, a free tier and a paid tier. There's lots of different benefits included in that. But if you want to become a part of the Wayfarers, that's what I'm going to be calling you guys, our patrons, you can do that for $5 a month. It's that simple. Or sign up as a free patron to kind of get in there. But you can read all about that in my patron, GW Journey Pod, on Patreon. Let's jump into our first segment. This is Waypoint Unknown. So, if you're not familiar with this segment, I describe an in-game location and you, the listener, have the opportunity to guess based on the clues where we are. My character currently is looking at a very small cascading waterfall outside a massive complex with jungle skelk lurkers outside. As I climb up and wade through this flowing water that moves through the complex, to my left I see a displaced quaggan who's kind of out of sorts. There's also a reef skelk, a toxic ooze, a hermit crab and breeze rider near another cascading waterfall. But if I turn left, there's this tiny little entrance into the facility where cave spiders come down and attack me immediately. As I move further in, I notice that there's a tiny, what seems to be a hidden room. In the center of this tiny room, there is a floating blue device with a purple gemstone barrier protecting it. As I look towards the walls, there's actually some translucent, kind of magical glass of sorts, a barrier, into a vast room outside it, with the interior of this facility with water falling down, fire. It's very clear that there was some sort of destruction in this area as I look through these windows. Have you figured it out? If you haven't guessed it already, we are in the region of Kryta, the zone of Metrica Province, and our location for today's Waypoint Unknown is the Thama Nova Reactor. If you're not familiar with this specific section in the game, you have to go do this to get a matrix cube, to go do a world boss, and then a follow-on boss. You can see that in one of my previous episodes, but that's where we are today in Waypoint Unknown.
Are you new around here?
In this next segment, it's called The Mulligan. A very simple segment where I might have misspoke, made a mistake about something in a previous episode, and there's only one for this one. In our last episode, I said that the main protagonist of the Ghosts of Ascalon Guild Wars 2 book was Douglas Keene. And I should have known I was wrong there, because I remember when I spoke it, there was this little inner voice that said to me, something's not right there. But I produced it anyway, put it out, and then I thought later, oh crap. His name is Dougal Keene, not Douglas Keene, folks. That is today's Mulligan.
Any interesting news?
As we move on to the news, the first thing I want to discuss is a Twitch live stream. This is happening tomorrow, Friday, March 20th at 12 p.m. Pacific U.S. time. It is World Boss Rush with the dev and ArenaNet partners. So the developers and ArenaNet partners are taking place in this. Roy Marks, Joe K, and several of our amazing partners are jumping into World Boss Rush with the community, and you're invited to hang out, cheer them on, and enjoy some laid-back chaos. Whether you're farming, watching, or just vibing, come be part of the fun. That's from Guild Wars 2. You can watch live on their Twitch channel at guildwars2.com. Again, that's tomorrow, Friday, March 20th at 12 p.m. Pacific. Next is March 17th's patch notes a couple days ago. And the thing I want to highlight in there is that there was something added to the launcher of Guild Wars 2, if you have the regular launcher, not the stream. And that is a theme selector, and it actually just so happens that I noticed this just on my own before even reading the patch notes, and then I just thought, maybe I must have been overlooking this, but I was not. This is brand new, so you can pick between the following themes: Visions of Eternity, Janthere Wilds, Secrets of the Obscure, End of Dragons, The Icebrood Saga, Living World Season 4, and Path of Fire. So you can choose those individually, or you can do the random option that'll randomize the theme when clicked and when the launcher is restarted.
My time is precious.
As we look at the in-game calendar, so to speak, there's only one that I want to highlight, and that's what's going on right now, which is World Boss Rush, which is kind of alluded to in the news there with the live stream tomorrow. But right now, World Boss Rush is going on until Tuesday, March 24th, so effectively 5 days from today. In your mail, you're going to receive a letter from Halvoris Snapdagger that says, "The Order of Whispers has a field operation that requires your assistance. Agents have identified a number of crises brewing across Tyria. We need to cut off those threats before they destabilize the area. Pay attention to the intel for hotspot locations and then handle those events as they occur. You're welcome to any spoils you find, and of course, the Order will also be issuing bounties based on the danger posed. P.S. This message won't self-destruct, but you'll burn it yourself if you know what's good for you." So, it's effectively what it sounds like, Boss Rush. You defeat world bosses to gain bonus rewards, and the rewards are 10 tiers, and they are including the following: 3 embroidered coin purse, Feast of Truffle Steak, 3 deluxe gear boxes, a Guild Heroes banner, 3 gilded strong boxes, a Feast of Rare Veggie Pizzas, 3 utility backpacks, a Guild Heroes banner, 3 heirloom seed pouches, and Tier 10 is a Pact Vigilance Signet. Again, that is the World Boss Rush, going on now until Tuesday, March 24th.
How are your endeavors progressing?
We now turn to the Wizard's Vault and its Astro Awards. And there's only one that I want to highlight, and that is the only Astro Award that is of note right now is the bonus week special objective of completing the aforementioned World Boss Rush Champion Achievement. You have until Tuesday, March 24th, because again, that is when World Boss Rush ends. So if you want to get in there, get some Astro Award, I believe I want to say 150, don't quote me on that because I don't have the game open right now. But it's a lot of Astral acclaim if you want to get that in the Wizard's Vault.
I've got deals you won't believe.
Moving right along, we are in the Lion's Share segment where we discuss everything Black Lion Trading Company. And first and foremost is a portable portal backpack skin and flower fashion package. Say that 5 times fast. Brand new one they put on their social media. It says, "Journey into the magical unknown with an easy-to-carry portal," or "Don beautiful botany on your armor with this week's Guild Wars 2 Gem Store's arrivals." The portable portal backpack skin and the flower fashion package are brimming with color. So that's the portal backpack skin first, and that is a Black Lion chest exclusive. And then the flower fashion package itself is 500 gems. You can find this video, see these two items specifically, see if they catch your fancy, on the Guild Wars 2 social media pages. Next is the magical March sales that have been going on. We highlighted this in the previous episode, and now kind of the second half of it is going on right now. March 17th until the 24th, unique armor skins 25% off, emotes and expansion items also 25% off. Permanent finishers 25% off, and the featured bundle a superb storage package we will discuss in just a little bit. The following week, March 24th through the 31st, character and account upgrades are 25% off, and of course that featured bundle is superb storage package. That is until the 31st. It says expand your journey interior with a variety of items that will enhance your incredible adventures. The Superb Storage Package has a limit of one purchase per account and is available for 1,600 gems, which includes one bag slot expansion and a 20-slot bag, a shared inventory slot, a character slot expansion, and a material storage expander. Again, that is the Superb Storage Package till March 31st. Finally, Black Lion chest keys are discounted right now. March 28th, rather. They're discounted by 30% from March 28th to March 31st, so mark that on your calendar.
Ideas are like cream. Good ones rise to the top.
And last but not least, before we jump into the bulk of our show, is our segment Forum Find, where I find something online in the forums and just opens up our discussion. This is from, it sounds like Other Dreamer, but there's no R, so Oth Dreamer. They wrote on Reddit, if the Guild Wars 2 servers were shut down forever, where would you park your main for its final resting place? Very good question. I'm sure a lot of places jump into your mind if you are the listener, but for me, having not played too much of the game so far, the place that always gets me in the feels, in the nostalgia, would be sitting on the top of the Inn of Shaymore with Queensdale in the background and being able to look out at the windmill and the rest of the zone. That would be my happy place, and that is what I would choose. What would you choose? Let me know on social media. You can email me at gwjourneypod@gmail.com as well. Let's move on to our main portion of the show, and that is our Tales of Tyria.
I have so much to tell you.
If you remember from last episode, we finished up Metrica Province, and now moving on to the neighboring zone, the starting zone for the Sylvari, Caledon Forest. I start out in the village of Astoria and talk to Wayland, who tells me that the Char are known for their metal machines, Asura their technologies, and the Sylvari understand nature. They say that they sense things that others can't. The first area I happen upon is Wardenhurst, and Ethne tells me it's the main camp for the Wardens defending Astoria and the Grove. Warden Gamai says their main challenge is dealing with the undead in the area, and I help defend the camp from an undead attack and head east. I come across Valiant Estian, who wants to take the fight to the undead in a cave up north. We battle them along the way, and once we get to the cave center, an undead corpse caller fights on behalf of Zaitan, the undead dragon. He then kills his Drake broodmother pet, and I have to put it down, unfortunately, as it's kind of revitalized to serve them. And afterwards, in his sadness, Estian realizes it left behind an egg, and later hatches into another Drake pet for him. Came full circle. Nearby, I hear a conversation between two Warden shields, which brings us to today's first Tyrian transmission.
Cannot parse message. Please restate.
I understand why the Wardens must be sent out to patrol other areas, but with so few of us left here, and the undead stepping up their attacks of late, I worry that Wardenhurst could fall.
Would you like me to hold you?
Does that move work on other guys?
Now, I like that audio clip not only because it's hilarious, but I really enjoy, in many ways, the role reversal. A lot of times when you hear those sort of punchlines in TV shows and movies, it's almost always the guy doing it to the girl. And it was refreshing to see the female go to the male and say that, whether that was her intention or not. And just like that clip, hope that you did too. Next, I rescued Sylvari that were trapped in a spider cave. There were also redcap mushrooms I could eat that would shrink me down and be able to draw spiders out of their nests. And after I rescued them, I defeated a spider queen in the cave. I happened upon next Danador's kennel, which was a gated field with sylvan hounds and pups. And he tells me that he felt drawn to this place, and when he arrived, found some silver hounds wandering aimlessly. He even lets me transform into a sylvan hound to help with the renown heart there, which was interesting. He also says that Madouin, or Modoin, I think Madouin, we'll go with that, is recently awakened, but shows a gift with a kennel. So when I go to talk to her, she says that the hounds are also born from the pale tree, but look and behave completely different. And I wonder if this helps support the idea that Melandru created the Sylvari and the hounds for the purpose of fighting the dragons. That's my thought. At Caer Verdant, Valiant Kalik says the undead are being controlled by a greater force, and she wants to know what it's after. Brugh tells me that Orion undead have marched in from the east. There are deep seas there perfect for the undead to travel through. He refers to his wild hunt being where the dream called him to, and apparently that's what it means for each Sylvari. So their wild hunts are not the same, but unique and different for each Sylvari. At this outpost, I also started noticing how the dialogue with the NPCs were specific to my race. In other words, if you play this game and you're a human or a Sylvari or a Norn, etc., and you talk to these NPCs, it changes the dialogue, which I think really goes above and beyond. A really great touch by ArenaNet. Kudos to you. While exploring Sleeves Inlet nearby, I noticed I couldn't use my mount in a certain area, so, alert, jumping puzzle, right, jumping puzzle. After jumping up high, I noticed a splendid chest. There you go. Unfortunately, when I fell into the area that it was in, it led me back to the entrance of the jumping puzzle, but to be honest, it's just this hole in the ground that's covered with leaves. In other words, I came into it on accident backwards, and I don't think, truly, I would have ever found that jumping puzzle on my own, because it's literally just covered in leaves on the ground. I don't think it would have happened. So, in my mind, I think it'd be helpful if ArenaNet, what do you think about this idea, if they just added jumping puzzles to the map completion, or at least make them optional, but put them on the map key, so at least people know if they're missing one in a zone, because I'd hate to think that someone can miss out on that. And in this case, it's called Spelunker's Delve. So I went back, did the actual jumping puzzle itself, and overall, wasn't a huge fan of it, because it's kind of sequestered, hidden away, it's very dark, it's kind of claustrophobic, and there's a lot of camera issues. So for me, a little too far hidden, a little too difficult to traverse, but I finished that one and moved on. I traveled north to Morgan's Spiral, where Warden Brulians tells me that the Risen washed in from the sea, with some even originating from ore itself. In the water nearby, I complete the Renown Heart while also stumbling across this beautifully creepy set piece of a giant risen crab and a shipwrecked boat. You can find it on most social media pages if you want to check it out. It's on there at GW Journey Pod. And after climbing the mini jumping puzzle in the center of that area, I come across Tamer Chide. He tells me that the Nightmare Court are Sylvari who reject the dream and pursue a more sinister path. They abduct animals and torture them into their servitude, amongst other things. And this area leads me further in to the Dreamdark Enclave, where I encounter another jumping puzzle, Dark Reverie, where you jump up a bunch of mushrooms, dodging poisonous plants, kind of fun. At the top, you reach your magnificent chest, as well as something that is very easily overlooked if you're not noticing, and that is a tiger den. It's this little thing you go click on. Apparently it's part of the Spirit of the Tiger achievement, where you find the lost tiger dens throughout Tyria. There's 11 of them, and then you unlock the mini tiger spirit. I move on to Briarthorn Den nearby, where I get disguised as a Nightmare Court Sylvari to infiltrate their base. Very kind of immersive RPG part of this zone. Apprentice Toindra helps explain some of their philosophy. They believe Sylvari and nature can't evolve unless they deny the darkest urges of their souls. So again, speaking on behalf of the Nightmare Court. Another recruit says that strength comes through suffering, and that Sylvari will never fully appreciate the gift of life if they reject pain, suffering, and death. He says that those people that do that are called dreamers, those who embrace the dream and Ventari's teachings as the only path. So in other words, the Nightmare Court calls the kind of regular old Sylvari dreamers for that reason. I head north and come across Zopado Grounds. I do a dynamic event where I get transformed into a crab to fight another crab, and then I'm told that some Hylic have gone missing in the south. I head back there, and when I click on this chest that's sitting out in the open, it's not a chest, it gets transformed into a Hylic. It tells me that they were kidnapped by a Crate Witch and she used her magic to disguise herself as a chest, but that the others were transformed into animals. So I'm given their saliva, tui, true story, because it has, quote, special properties, and it actually does, and I'm supposed to use it to bring the Hylic back to their true form. So, do all that, I escort Patty and the Hylic back to the village, and once I'm there I have to use the saliva again, lucky me, to find the Crate Witch hidden among the Hylic, and once I do, I of course defeat her. In the Ogham Wilds, I talk to Arius, who's tending his garden. He transforms into a treant helps me transform into a treant to help fix it up. Kinda cool. Head north and eventually find a small empty cave on the eastern part of the map. And western part of the map. And right before I leave, thinking nothing of it, I see a sparkly area in the upper right-hand corner of the cave. And after investigating, I discover Speck's Laboratory, a jumping puzzle. This one was so much fun. It opens up into this big, cavernous, volcanic laboratory. You can find this also on my social media pages. And you have to jump up magical platforms that disappear on a timer, all while robots are firing at you. Very awesome. And then at the end, you actually confront Speck, and then, of course, get his treasure. Definitely check that one out. That's Speck's Laboratory. I continue north and come across a tattered journal on the ground. On the cover, someone has written in an elegant hand, chronicling the separation. Quote, I've had a little success thus far during the daylight hours, but I find my nights have been quieter. My dreams seem to be my own. I seem to be making progress. It'll be such a relief when my mind is my own. I thought I'd be frightened alone in my head without the voices of the other Sylvari to guide me, but now I await it eagerly. Nightmare Court are moving closer to our small village. We came here to escape the troubles of the other Sylvari, but they seem to follow us even here. Where will we go when it's no longer safe to stay? Interesting. Next, I travel to the Weeping Isle, which is home to the Soundless. An interesting kind of subculture of the Sylvari. Quillen there says that they have come there to emancipate themselves from the dream and the burden it imposes on them. So, I'm thinking to myself, is the burden that they are to fight Zaitan and that they don't want to? I don't know. Are they pacifists? nihilists? And if it is true that they were created to fight Zhaitan, I kind of like the idea of the Soundless, that they really want to be autonomous and make decisions for themselves. I think that's an interesting note. I'm hoping to see these people later, these kind of types of Sylvari later in the game. Be curious to see if their story continues. Tyleth there also starts a dynamic event where we have to free Soundless from the Nightmare Court as they are kept prisoners. So we travel with her there, we defeat the Nightmare Court, release the prisoners, and back at the Weeping Isle, she sells me a bottle of silent liqueur. I travel further north to Cathal and talk to Warden Dynad. He's there training wild Sylvan pups to work with the Wardens in defense of the Grove, and Warden Gwynda, not to be confused with Galinda, says it's a peaceful community sheltered by the haven nearby, which is surprising because they are at the edge of Witchmere Swamp, a place that has swallowed more lives than Zhaitan, she says. Warden Fila says that the Nightmare Court's hounds, by contrast, are trained through defeat and intimidation, growing to hate everything around them and lashing out whenever they're able to. I next travel southeast to the ruins of the Unseen. There, researcher Zipti asks for help with her research. She's studying the script. And a dynamic event starts with Apprentice V says that he wants help retrieving their tracking devices from the script. So I retrieve them. I complete the dynamic event. But while doing so, I also happen upon a script cave that leads us to this little mini dungeon. There's an orb in a glass case that you grab, and if you throw it at the door nearby, it opens up, and it brings you to a room with a bunch of golems called Eye of the Unseen, who sit dormant. And at the end of the room, there's a sacred script shiny that if you touch, all those golems attack while thunder shoots out of pillars in the ceiling. So, you were warned. If you open the splendid chest at the end, you will get the achievement, Don't Touch the Shiny. When I went back outside the cave, I also came across a mini jumping puzzle made out of debris, script goods, and ruins. That was a lot of fun. Liked that one, and led to a vista point in the ruins. I traveled north to Caledon Haven, and there Captain Ragna tells me they built it over some ancient ruins. He says that an Asuran crew also came to the Haven to do research, but doesn't really like having them around. Nearby him, the aforementioned Asura, researcher Flit tells me that the Lion Guard are blocking their access to valuable information, so they have to put an extra effort to work around them, so kind of the feeling's mutual. Next I travel east and happen upon the Honto Trading Post. There Chief Dekti is studying the script. She says that it's a Tengu trading post, but they let them use it in exchange for trying to set up an Asura gate, but only if the research goes well. I talk to the Tengu Sho and ask if more of his people are coming out of their fortress, like are there more coming? And he says that the Emperor wishes for them to expand their influence in the world's markets. I travel even further east, where I reach the Dominion of the Wind's fortress gate thing. Hayato tells me it is the Tengu home for the past 100 years, but do not welcome outsiders because they want to protect themselves. He says that a descendant of the venerable Silverwing led their people here through the waves of Orion corruption, and they honor their ancestors by staying true to their vision. They only come out to trade at the Honto Trading Post because their weapons sell well in their markets. He also says that many of his ancestors came from Cantha, but many others came from Ilona and other parts of Tyria, migrating from all over, seeking safe haven from the Great Tsunami. I swim north and come across a Hylic named Quiado, we'll go with that, who is captured in the crate prisons underwater. After escorting her back to her village, her father says that he doesn't trust the outsiders and tells us to leave. She then decides to have us gather crate skins to hopefully show that we have a common enemy, so I do so and return them to her camp. She displays them to gain the trust of her father to let outsiders into the village, and when asked why they are suspicious of outsiders, she says they used to embrace travelers, granting them food and shelter, but when the Crate attacked, they abandoned them, leaving their young to be taken by Crate slavers. Quiatl is also blue in color, but the rest of the Hylek are yellow. And when I ask why, I'm told that her mother was of another tribe, and she was killed by the Crate during their first attack. And in his rage, her father even forgets that she is also the product of accepting outsiders. Shortly after this exchange, the Crate attack again. After defending the village, the leader and her father, Totli, finally endeared themselves to me. He says he became so untrusting because his father was taken during a Crate attack, and while sheltering outsiders, they turned their backs during battle. So there's kind of a generational trauma there. He also says that the Crate haven't been here long. They used to dwell deeper in the depths, but something drove them to the surface, but he doesn't know what. I really liked that my reward for this chain of dynamic events was more lore, more backstory. I really enjoyed that. Outside the village itself, I find Winnie and FR the Third, which brings us to our second Tyrian transmission.
Cannot parse message. Please restate.
So, let me get this straight. These Hylek are yellow, the ones to the northeast and far south are red, the Hylek to the west are orange.
Right.
The Hylek to the southeast are green, and we even saw a blue one earlier, not far from here.
Right. The blue ones and the green ones are nice, the orange ones and the red ones are mean, and the yellow ones are sometimes nice and sometimes mean, depending on their mood.
I wish they were all nice, and there was a purple one that sang and danced and gave out candy.
Me too, but unfortunately, this is the real world, not some fantasy land.
I really like that audio clip, not only because it's hilarious and you also learn more about the world, but it's got this, seemingly obvious reference to Barney the dinosaur in real life, which I thought was pretty cheeky. But moving on, after their exchange, I talked to Ifar, and he tells me that he's an expert on the Hylek. They have a highly sensitive tongue. They practice alchemy by mixing potions and poisons, and some of the more primitive ones still worship the sun as a god. Afterward, there was a dynamic event nearby where I had to turn into a jellyfish to defeat, you guessed it, a jellyfish. And after that, Zolotl, a Hylek leader, calls me to fight her. During the fight with others, she eventually spews something on me, turns me into a Moa to fight the majority of the rest of the battle, which was kind of fun. And upon completing it, she says, "I've proven my worth," and I get a chest. Next, I traveled north through Quetzal Bay and come across a Quaggan fishing village called Saugersort. Sounds like a village outside Hogwarts in my book. First, I happen upon a pipe organ in a giant clam, which leads me to today's first hidden in plain sight.
How interesting.
Nearby, there's an NPC named Ague that hums the melody of the Guild Wars 2 Overture. And if you play that actual tune, the clam next to it opens and rewards you with a chest. You can do that. Afterward, they say that I played her favorite song and that it helps her remember her friends. Long ago, the Crate took them and worked them to death as slave traders. And now the organ sits silent and no one in town knows how to play it. Sad panda. Or, I guess in this case, sad Quaggan. The Varanos of the village, Boudou, we'll go with Boudou, says the Quaggans get too angry when they fight, they change, and lose control, which is why they choose to be pacifists. He says Quaggan used to live in deeper waters, but the Crate bullied them to the shallows and hide in the shadow of the Tengu. I was a little tired of fighting Crate at this time and fighting underwater, so I decided to go to the opposite side of the map, to Dengato Grounds, a small Hylek area. When you defeat their champion, there's a gong nearby, and if you throw a boulder at it, it opens up a door to a cave filled with veteran Hylek complete with a champion Hylek. Couldn't defeat him on my own, so I asked in chat, and Buttermore, if you are listening, came to my rescue, another player in-game. Conveniently, he had never done this area before, and it was all new to him. After we defeated the champion, we saw that the cave tunnels went further, and brings you to a bunch of lily pads lying on water with tears of Itlaocal on them. These shiny blue gem-type items. And when we looked up at the ceiling rock face, there's 2 patterns, and we realized that we had to follow the pattern. So once we chose the right one, the cave shook, and it gave us another pattern. And after getting that one right, it opens up to a back room with a grand chest, another Aetherblade cache, guarded by 3 Aetherblade thugs, and an item on the ground called Itlaocal's Flower, which is apparently a trophy for a legendary weapon. All in all, this mini-dungeon is called Tears of Itlaocal, which was a lot of fun, and thank you, Buttermore, for being my questing companion throughout it. Afterward, I head back to the northeast part of the map to Quetzal Bay, and Lion Guard Hester asked me to rescue slaves taken by the crate. At the bottom of the bay is a crate altar hero point that says, "This dark stone altar has been the site of many crate sacrifices of slaves and rituals designed to appease the crate prophet, who they believe will someday return to flood the entire Tyrian continent." Is this a future boss or enemy in game? ? Next, I come across Valiant Sana, who wants help with scouting mission to patrol for the undead. I escort her here and 2 other Wild Hunt Valiants through 3 different areas of undead. And in each area, the rot from the undead is damaging the wildlife, so we set it ablaze so it can be cleansed and grow back anew. At the end of this dynamic event, I face a risen abomination and wipe his face. At Cratebane Haven nearby, Sheriff Walness tells me it was built to keep the Crate of Slavers Deep from attacking merchants traveling on the road. He also says that the undead bubble up from a small inlet in Tree March Estuary, and his guess is that there's an underground grotto or waterway that comes from the ocean. Next, I happen upon a veteran Moss Hearts, a bunch of them rather, being attacked by fire imps in a dynamic event, where I needed to use gourds filled with water to put out fires and fight these imps and even put out the fires on the Moss Hearts themselves. It was quite a frantic dynamic event, and truly I only passed it with 1 Moss Heart left standing. At Lion Guard Way Station nearby, Warden Kenty tells me that the Nightmare Court has set up camp in the heart of the Witchmere Swamp, and unnatural creatures rise up around them. Additionally, jungle trolls up north threaten the only major route through the area. Laywin in the swamp tells me that the Nightmare Court has a camp to the north called Banshee's Keen, where they keep prisoners. She tells me that this area, Fallius Thorpe, was once a soundless settlement, but the Nightmare Court put an end to it, and they are now just a warden outpost. After killing the Nightmare Court people nearby and freeing some prisoners, I go to complete the last renowned heart in the northwest part of the map. I kill some trolls, and as I finish, Merchant Trundle and Remy, they're traveling to Brisbane Wildlands to try their luck with their sales, when they are attacked by a veteran troll and some minions. If you happen to do this one and complete it, they will sell you what they sold me, a bottle of Remy Trundle Lager, which is actually one of 8 lagers that go towards an achievement. There you go. Finally, I complete the map by doing the meta event in Witchmere Swamp. I start by talking to Gamarian, and he says, "My wild hunt called me here. There's a darkness here as well as the occasional summon husks that appear, no doubt due to the Nightmare Court's presence. It's even been affecting the animals here. I'm scouting Witchmere Swamp for Nightmare Court activity, though I fear an even darker force is at work. I worry these summon husks are harbingers of that greater foe. Will you help me investigate?" Of course I do. I escort him throughout the swamp and defeat monsters and more Nightmare Court, and he tells me that the wildlife here has always been aggressive, but it's become more so lately. Something is driving them out. Eventually, it leads me to the spot of a great jungle worm, which was pretty bomb.com. This was a great epic boss battle. It was great. Lots of different mechanics. We vanquished our foe. And for me, my favorite world boss so far, and a really nice cap to the zone. Speaking of which, what is my overall verdict for Caledon Forest? Well, first of all, what a giant starting zone. This is definitely the one that takes the longest to complete of the three that I've done so far, Humans, Asura, and now Sylvari. Overall, it also has the most diversity of any starting zone, but to be perfectly honest, I think that actually works against this zone. This zone's fragmented nature with such variety of locations, enemies, and people, for me, made for a fragmented and fractured narrative. It felt like the first third of the zone was dedicated to the Sylvari, but the other 2/3 felt like it was just a, quote, regular zone. It really made me feel like the Sylvari through-line narrative was lost and I stopped caring about them as it went on. I think what happened is that, if I were to make an assumption here, ArenaNet wanted the zone to feel like the Sylvari awakening and being thrust into the open world that is Tyria, with all the ups and downs and dangers that it entails. And while I understand this premise, I think this should have been done in the next zone, Brisbane Wildlands, and should have dedicated this entire zone more to the Sylvari specifically. I also didn't really care for the fact that the zone is called Caledon Forest, but roughly only about half of it is actual forest. The rest of the zone is water, or bay area, swamp, beaches, etc. I think the zone also seemed to let me down a bit because I think the Sylvari have the most interesting backstory of all the races so far, and they kind of miss the opportunity to really have you go along their venturing out premise and see it through their eyes solely. My favorite parts were Morgan's Spiral, the Specs Laboratory jumping puzzle, and the final Great Jungle Worm world boss. Overall, my verdict for Caledon Forest is a C+. After finishing up in Caledon Forest, I thought it only appropriate to move on to the capital city of the Sylvari, the Grove. I talked to Line, and she tells me she needs a break from her learning circle. They are mentored in the ways of the world from the moment they awaken. Their teacher is a firstborn, and the Pale Tree is their mother, and the firstborn are their aunts and uncles. I do a vista nearby that shows the Pale Tree from a distance, and it is breathtaking. I had to record it. It's on my social media if you want to check it out, but the view of the tree from afar with this really kind of Final Fantasy-esque music in the background is just, chef's kiss, as the cool kids say. And a little backstory for those who don't know, I remember playing this in the beta before the game ever launched, and the Sylvari race itself actually had not the greatest feedback in terms of their design. So they actually went back and redid every single Sylvari. They basically redid the race. And not only that, but they also had many iterations of the Grove itself, so it just kind of reminded me of that time way back in the day. Next, I talked to Garadwar, we'll go with that, says that Zaitan's minions lap like putrid water at the edges of the Grove. Okay. I ran into Mentor Arduin, who tells me that Ventari wanted to give people a code to live by. Ventari was a centaur who lived over 200 years ago. They say that he and a human named Ronan planted the Pale Tree and tended her when she was a sapling. Nearby, I take a leafy elevator ride, not something here every day, to the Omphalos, or Omphalos, Oompa Loompa, no, we'll go with Omphalos, we'll go with that one, the Omphalos Chamber. Up in the top of the tree, essentially there, I first read Ventari's tablet. Here's what it says. Live life well and fully, and waste nothing. Do not fear difficulty, hard ground makes stronger roots. The only lasting peace is the peace within your soul. All things have a right to grow. The blossom is brother to the weed. Never leave a wrong to ripen into evil or sorrow. Act with wisdom, but act. And finally, from the smallest blade of grass to the largest mountain, where life goes, so too should you. But that was kind of nice. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like Ten Commandments-ish, but just it's got its own spin. Maybe a little more holistic. I like it. I think the one I liked the most was, all things have a right to grow. The blossom is brother to the weed. I like the kind of autonomy that's kind of written into that subtext-wise. I next talk to the avatar of the tree. And there's a comment from her about Scarlet dying, which is unfortunate because I haven't gotten to that part of the game yet, even though I know that's coming. She also says that she is a manifestation of the tree that she uses to put visitors at ease. Very interesting. She says her entire being stretches deep into this world and out into the dream. And finally, she says that Sylvari are connected, yet free will does play a role. For example, not all embrace Ventari's teachings, as we have learned. Whether it's the Nightmare Court, who, twists their beliefs beyond repair, or the Soundless, who use meditation to cut themselves off. I move on to explore the rest of the city, and in Reckoner's Terrace, I talk to Althair, who tells me that he got back from traveling to Ebonhawk to visit the grave of Kylene. Dun dun dun! For those of you who don't know, Kylene is a main character in Ghosts of Ascalon, the first Guild Wars 2 book that I am currently in the middle of, so spoiler alert! Kylene dies. Well, actually, I didn't put this in my notes, but now that I think about it, she technically doesn't have to die from some tragic means. She could have just died of old age. Okay, there we go. Well, regardless, I like the throwback, the reference to the book, especially being in the midst of it. Next, I come across Quoltwar. Am I saying that right? And Gaimrid. It's almost like these names are like Celtic in design. I don't know. They're tending the pods of the soon-to-be-awakened Sylvari. They say that some awaken still in the dream, but that is uncommon. Also, the Blessed Mother does most of the work keeping the pods healthy, but there have been incidents. It says, nature can be cruel. Sometimes a pod dies, killing the sleeper within. So I'm thinking to myself, how does this all work? Is this a plot point later in the game, perhaps? At the Scholar's Terrace, I talk to Bew. He says he went on an expedition. And this is what he says. He says, we were looking for the caverns known as the Shards of Ore, where the Corsair lady Lady Glaive and her crew hid after she was defeated in the Second Great Corsair War. One of her lieutenants betrayed her. Lady Glaive escaped, but she lost most of her crew. Supposedly their ghosts haunt the caverns. The traitorous lieutenant was cursed to join the ranks of the undead. Next, Mentor Gaelic tells me about the history of the Grove. They say that there were 12 who awakened first, and although 2 left to explore this world, which I'm assuming Kaith is one of them, others stayed behind to welcome subsequent saplings and grow our home. They use their plant-shaping skills to grow all you see around us. With each successive generation, the Grove has literally grown into what it is now. I move on to the bottom level of the city, and I come to Kaith's home. She is in her home, but when I talk to her, she just says to come back later. She's blending poison for her blades. Okay, then. There are some books sitting nearby, however, and of course I have to read them. One of the books was made with modern Crichton binding techniques. The title embossed on the spine reads, Long Distance Relationships, 10 Ways to Make It Work. So for reading between the lines, I'm assuming this is Kaith's lover, which I'm assuming we'll learn about later. There's also a Sylvari lamp that you can turn on in her home, but nothing happens other than the light coming on, so I don't know, for a separate instanced home, it was kind of meh. Also in the Garden of Dawn, I talked to Gorin. He tells me that the cycle luminaries are the firstborn who lead each of the 4 cycles. Aif is the dawn cycle, Kahedon's dusk, Naim for noon, and Melamades for night. Next, I talked to Samd. They're really testing me with these names. Who tells me that Ronan was a human who lived hundreds of years ago, and if it weren't for him, the firstborn might never have awakened. This is what they say. He was a Shining Blade soldier. He once got separated from his unit in a cavern filled with strange seed pods, one of which he stole from vicious plant creatures. When he returned home, Mersat had destroyed his village and his family was dead. In grief, he planted the seed on their graves and swore never to return to battle. The seed became the Pale Tree. We come from her, our blessed mother. Ronan befriended a centaur named Ventari. He is the one who carved the Ventari tablet. Really interesting. The part that sticks out to me is he planted the seed on their graves. This idea that this whole city bloomed essentially out of the remains of his family, it just makes you wonder, right? Like, is the Avatar the mother, the Blessed Mother, that sort of thing, somehow the remnants of maybe the wife? I don't know. Momak nearby tells me that when a Sylvari is born, it determines their personality. Dawn blooms have a talent for diplomacy. For noon, it's action. Dusk often pursues more scholarly activities. And no one knows the shadows like the night blooms. Lastly, I visit the Nightshade Garden where they keep prisoners. Unfortunately, as beautiful as it is, there's not really much going on in there. Kind of a letdown. And as I wrapped up the map completion for the Grove, I checked the wiki to see, hey, am I missing anything? And indeed I was. Which leads us to today's second hidden in plain sight.
How interesting.
If you go to the northernmost pond in the Garden of Dawn, that lower level of the city, you can actually swim down underneath through a small tunnel that reveals a hidden entrance to a beautiful grotto with a waterfall. There's nothing there other than the scenic view, unless there's something later in the game that I don't know about, but I do know that this location is used for Kudzu III, Leaf of Kudzu, and Guild Treks, so I'm assuming a legendary weapon, but you can find a video of this on my social media at GW Journey Pod, all the different social platforms, as you know. So what did I think? What's my overall verdict of the Grove? Well, I think the thing that the Grove does best is in the visual department. It is gorgeous. I also think that, like Radasum, it accurately represents the Sylvari, their race, well. I'm personally not a huge fan of all the levels and multiple pathways that made it kind of confusing to get around. But unfortunately, it also reminded me of Radasum in a bad way, in that there was a lot of the dialogue with NPCs that really didn't give much substance to the world. Only a select few did. I also really would have liked to have been able to travel to the outer exterior of the city where the routes meet the jungle and surrounding sea, because the city just feels so enclosed. But those are my thoughts. Overall, my grade for the Grove is a C+. As I moved on from the Grove, I realized that I had not done the explorable modes yet of Ascalonian Catacombs or Caudicus's Manor, the 2 dungeons we've done so far in story mode, and I thought it's a perfect time to do so because Dungeon Rush was going on. So headed on over to Lion's Arch, used the kind of teleport, so to speak, with the LFG, and entered the explorable mode for the Ascalonian Catacombs. Upon entering, I'm told that there's a priory camp nearby holding out against Graveling attacks. The scholar says their only hope is to kill one of their patriarchs, but they can't agree on which one to target. They say that once the ghost of King Adalburn was defeated in the story mode dungeon, which we did, they sprung up everywhere. It was actually his presence that kept them underground. 3 different characters argue for different Patriarch, bosses that we need to fight, and I first chose to fight the Howling King. I'm told that the flaming scepter mages of Old Ascalon are buried here with their weapons, scepters that can kill the Howling King. Hodges, the NPC, leads us to the Archive of the Resting, where many great mages of Nolani Academy are buried. And it's in this area that we come to our third hidden in plain sight.
How interesting.
My good friend, the Wiki, told me that there is a hidden area at the back of the Archive of the Resting. There's essentially a spiral you have to go up anyway for the questing through the dungeon. But if you don't look even closer, you'll overlook basically the setup is that there's some beams on the wall that you can jump and kind of continue this mini jumping puzzle. And it's kind of difficult, but if you can do it, you finally get to this cobblestone ledge that leads to basically some foliage on the wall. But if you walk through that foliage, you'll come upon a really tiny room, I'm not making this up, filled with turkeys. It makes no sense. I have no idea what it's in reference to, but it exists. If you want to see this, check out my social media. I've got a video for you there. Next, we traverse further into the dungeon, and after getting all the pieces for the scepter, my party defeats the Howling King. But before leaving, I check the wiki again and realize there's another overlooked area, which leads us to today's record 4th hidden in plain sight.
How interesting.
So this one is not as difficult to notice if you just explore, but you do have to do some exploring. Where you defeat the Howling King is the northwest part of the dungeon. It's called the Lair of the Patriarch. And if you go to the far western part of that area, you'll find some stairs. And all you have to do is follow that path. It'll go up and up and around and around and up, and eventually opens up to this dark cavern with a bunch of platforms resting in the middle of the room that kind of fall into darkness below. True story. This is what is seemingly an abandoned jumping puzzle that ArenaNet had in the game, and is still there. And not only that, to get from each platform to the next, just like at the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, if you've seen that movie at the very end where he has to walk out and kind of take that first leap of faith, figuratively speaking, and step into nothing and hope that there's a ledge below, that's exactly what you do in this jumping puzzle. You have to see it to believe it, experience it to believe it. If you want to check this out, it's also on my social media. Check all the platforms, GW JourneyPod. Next, I chose the second path in the Explorable Dungeon. Detha tells me that we have to defeat the Ghost Eater, a dangerous foe that eats the spirits of the remaining Ascalonians. Detha's plan is to lure it into a death trap by gathering pheromones from the female corpses, and after doing all this, the most difficult part was the boss battle, where we had to coordinate one player lifting these oozes, and another one had to pull them using this device, kind of gun of sorts, towards these traps to then eventually take down the Ghost Eater's ghost shields and then fight them after that. It took us a while because it was pretty much new for all of us, which was actually really nice. It just took a while. Finally got the hang of it, we defeated it, and after that I decided to do the third path, of course, to finish it up. And Sark says that we need to defeat Colossus Rumblus, a giant graveling that is threatening to collapse the entire catacombs with its tremors. Their plan is to become ghosts and recruit War Master Grast below to help kill the Patriarch. So, we do just that. We defend Essence Collectors, we become ghosts, we defeat War Master Grast to recruit him, and then we head to the boss. When we finally get there, Colossus Rumblus is actually the easiest and quickest of the bosses, which is kind of sad panda considering how awesome his name is. But overall, I really enjoyed the explorable modes. I enjoyed my time there. My favorite part was clearly the 2 hidden areas, as well as simply just the dungeon diving itself. spending time with my party, especially people that were new like me that were trying to figure out the mechanics as we went along. My one criticism, however, comes in the form of today's Dear ArenaNet, a segment where we figuratively write a ye old letter of criticism towards the developer about something that I think should be changed, removed, improved, or iterated upon. Dear ArenaNet, I recently completed my first explorable dungeon in Ascalonian Catacombs. It was a lot of fun with my party and I having to learn the pathways and mechanics as we went, and really felt like we were there discovering everything as grand adventurers in a world that isn't our own. It was also really nice having the freedom to explore the dungeon, rather than be on rails and do a very streamlined version of the dungeon. However, after completing the second pathway of the dungeon, I asked if anyone in my party wanted to see the hidden areas I'd experienced earlier. After they said yes, I realized that I couldn't access those areas unless I had chosen the first path. In other words, yes, it's an explorable dungeon, but only in name. It's more like 3 separate story dungeons. My party was sad to hear it and was on their way. I, however, think there's an easy fix for this. Instead of having 3 different pathways that control which parts of the dungeon you can traverse, you should let us have access to the entire dungeon as a reward for completing a single path, or at least give us the option to complete all 3 pathways in one playthrough if we'd like. If you implemented this change, only then will it truly be an explorable dungeon. Sincerely, Winkari. And with that, our time together comes to a close. I really appreciate you sticking it out, especially with me having a cold. I know it's not the greatest sound to hear when someone's talking like this the entire podcast, but what are you going to do? Outside the voice, if you like what you hear content-wise, and you'd like to keep traveling with me, be sure to follow the journey wherever you listen. Also, I'd appreciate it if you could comment, rate, and review. It really helps us be discovered by other people. And if you write a comment or review, I'll even read it on the show. You can also find me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube, all the things at GW Journey Pod. And if you have any questions, comments, or corrections, you can email me at gwjourneypod@gmail.com, which reminds me, we've got an email.
What a nice surprise.
Our email says, "Greetings from Divinity's Reach. This is Any Lida." Don't worry, I can't pronounce it either. "I came across your podcast recently as I've slowly gotten back into Guild Wars 2. I'm loving the content and the production value. I'm also a very casual player. Today I listened to your podcast trailer and OMG, your background sounds identical to mine. I also joined in pre-beta and then played through Path of Fire and then stopped playing, life, etc. We definitely have lots in common, so I just wanted to say hi. Currently, in my very casual way, I'm working on the Seasons of the Dragon achievements to get my free legendary amulet, and then maybe do some PvP to finish some PvP armor. See ya, Interia, Any Lida." If I'm saying the name right or wrong, however it's pronounced, I appreciate the email. Guys, I'll say to you, overarchingly as well, as someone who creates a podcast, it's this really weird thing where you put a lot of time, effort, love, and sweat into it. You kind of click launch, and then it's just kind of out there in the ether. And to be perfectly honest, unless I get feedback from you, whether it's through comments, reviews, emails, I really don't know who's listening or what you think of the content. And that's not really a plea as much as just the weird reality of being a podcaster. So emails like that mean a lot to me. It also mean a lot to me if you checked out my new Twitch. I'm streaming there a few days a week. That's at Winkari, Winkari. You can find me on Twitch. And finally, as I said at the beginning of the show, the number one way you could support me is checking out our brand new Patreon. This is GW Journey Pod as well. There's only one tier, essentially. You can sign up for free, or if you want to really support financially, it's just $5 a month. You'll become a Wayfarer. As a Wayfarer, you will get access to Traveler Logs, Patreon-only updates and behind-the-scenes content that I will be putting out, a member shout-out in the outro of an episode when you sign up, a member shout-out in the show notes of every episode, and also quarterly live chat, hangout, or AMAs. Check that out, the Patreon GW Journey Pod. Finally, special thanks to ArenaNet for in-game music and sound, and to you for listening. I'll see you next time when the journey continues.